everybody, we are at RIA Edge West, and I am really excited to have John O Connell, founder and CEO of Oasis Group. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Johnny. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking time out. You're a busy guy. You hosted the roundtable for CTOs.
Yep.
Just yesterday, and so
Yep.
that's where we're going to start this conversation, right?
Sounds good.
So you had how many CTOs? 12?
We had 15 that were supposed to make it, but unfortunately the weather here in Southern California this week has been a bit challenging, so we had 12 that made it.
Okay, so you had 12 CTOs. And what were some of those favorite takeaways from that conversation that you had?
You know, it's always a great conversation, right? I mean, the firms that we have that attend they're $1 billion and up, so they're in that cusp of, and that runs all the way up to like 20, 25 billion, right? So they're on that cusp of how do I get to the next level, right? So some of the really big takeaways were, number one, additional services, right? Advisors are really trying to offer additional services to their clients. So that could be, you know, dedicated tax planning capability, that could be estate planning capability or wills and trust capability. So how do they bring more services to their clients? And then how do they support that, right? That's another layer of integration where they've got data that needs to transfer between the applications to be able to offer that additional capability to their advisors. I think the second really big thing that came out of it was this move to more of a standardized technology stack. I think we've seen now for the past couple of think tanks, this was our fourth cohort, but we've seen in the past couple of think tanks this move now to really standardize more on technology. I think in the beginning, a lot of the aggregator firms were focused on come with whatever you want and we'll embrace it and bring that forward. But they're beginning to really struggle with economy of scale. They've got multiple CRMs. Understanding a sales pipeline across all that is challenging. So moving more towards that standardized technology stack is definitely something we're seeing with the large firms.
Interesting. So with that standardized technology stack, what's the data migration process like for those firms? Because I imagine that has got to be a bear of a project. So how do they plan for that, manage that? How do you help them navigate that?
There's certain areas that are going to be easier for that kind of migration, right? Which would seem slightly counterintuitive. Moving everyone to a common investment management platform is much easier because there's less customization a lot of times there, right? And those are areas where there's a lot of manual efforts in opening an account, money movement, RMDs, things like that, that having a standard structure can provide you really great economy of scale across your operations team. The more difficult areas to do that are going to be around the CRM, right? Everyone's created customizations or configurations in their CRM where they've got some special field that they're tracking, or maybe they've built a lot of workflows that are duplicative to workflows that you would have normally in the investment management solution. So there's more challenges there. Those take a bit longer to do the migration. And you really have to decide, is that data I need? Or is it just kind of nice to have data? So a lot of times when we help firms with that, we look at things like data density, right? How many, if you've got X number of households, how many of those households have this field populated? And if you have less than 50% data density, it's a real conversation. You may not need to take that field forward.
I've not heard that term before.
Yeah, it's an old, well, you know, I'm an old Oracle guy, right? So you have to be looking at it from a database perspective. So by looking at it that way, it drives a much more, it takes the emotion out of that particular field or those discussions and really gets to a point of, look, if we bring it forward, are you going to maintain that data or not? And if you haven't been maintaining it before, you're not likely to maintain it moving forward. So maybe we don't bring that data forward. We keep a copy of it for you so you have it if you want it, but we don't have to bring that forward to the new solution.
So I'm going to get out of my depth here real quick, but you're going to help me understand some of these things. Okay. So there's a lot of talk about just data and how advisors manage it going on right now. There's a lot of people talking about data warehouses, data lakes, these types of terms. I feel like to the average advisor, this is just like a different foreign language. Some of these CTOs probably understand this well. But, you know, for an advisor checking this out, thinking about, you know, going to have to go through this data migration, are those things that they need to be concerned about? Do you have to kind of like start there and then build your tech stack from there so you've got this central repository? How's that all work together?
So I think that a lot of times, you know, we work with a lot of aggregators that are bringing in firms and acquiring firms. So a couple of quick things around that. The first is determine what your central tech stack is going to look like, and then determine how you're going to create a data lake or a data warehouse outside of that. And those terms are actually different. So a data lake means I'm copying everything from, for example, I'm going to copy all the contents of the CRM into a data lake.
Okay.
And then you build a data warehouse on top of that to answer specific questions. So for example, you may want to build a data warehouse on top of that to say, what is the sales pipeline, right? How many leads are an advisor team generating? And where are those, what's the average cycle time that they have to go from initial conversation with a client to account opening, right? That's a really great way to understand what your sales process looks like and the volume they're creating. Okay. So that's a great example. That's a great question to answer with a data warehouse, but I can't answer that question without having all the data someplace. So put the data in a data lake, build a data warehouse on top of that to answer the specific question. What we try to avoid having firms do is let's just jump into data warehousing and build a data warehouse, because you wind up building out something that doesn't answer specific questions for you, and it just becomes a morass of just a ton of data that you're not actually leveraging. So having data that you don't leverage is hoarding. And nobody likes hoarding. It's usually that's something you don't want to do. So having data that you're not going to leverage is just hoarding data, and it doesn't make any sense.
Interesting. Okay, you helped me understand those terms a lot better here. So thanks for going through that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Always great to chat with you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Johnny. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.